plastic that is around it. After that, you'll go ahead and use your Phillips screwdriver. It's always best to have a very thin shank screwdriver, so then, especially with these screws because they're right up against the bottom of the laptop, if they're slightly magnetized, it makes things easier, so you don't have to try to dig the screws out. With this laptop in general, there's only 2 screws that hold the front plastic in. The rest is all held in by clips and adhesive around the edge. Usually what you want to do is you want to start on the sides. They're usually the easiest to unclip. Just very carefully rock it back and forth until the tabs unclip themselves. You don't want to pry too much on it or else you will crack the plastic. Along the top there's an adhesive bar right here. You just want to be really careful whenever you're pulling those up. I find it helps to rock the plastic back and forth to kind of get the clips unhooked. If you get stuck on one side, then just move to the other, and you'll eventually work your way around. With the bottom, I try to run my finger along the edge. It'll help unclip some of the stubborn clips. And with this one, it unhinges at the bottom. This piece comes up with the bezel. Go ahead and take this and set it off to the side. Okay, after we get the screen off, then you'll basically see some of the components. You have the webcam up here. We're going to want to unplug the webcam. You can do this by using your implement or just very carefully pulling on the plug. It's not very hard. You'll see down here is your inverter. We're going to be reusing this with the new LCD. Here is your inverter plug. You can use your tweezers or just your fingers to unplug it. Okay. On this screen, there's 8 screws you need to take out. There's 2 at the top and then 3 at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and take these 3 out. All the screws along the bottom are the same, so you don't have to worry about keeping them separate for the holes. Whenever you take off the top screws, be careful. The back panel may fall away from the LCD since it's no longer being held in place. The top screws are also the same as the bottom, so you can just put them in your same pile. Okay. As you can see, the top is starting to fall away. If you want, you can lower it down to unhook it from the bottom. Let it fall away. Looking at the back of the screen now, then we see we have your LCD cable right here, along with your webcam cable. These are taped down, so you need to carefully pry them up. Pull the tape up. The LCD cable is held in by a very tough piece of tape. So you'll basically stick your fingernail or your sharp implement under there and very carefully pry up the corner of the tape. Once you get a little bit up, then you should be able to pull the rest with your fingernails or your fingers. Okay. You want to pull it away, but leave it on the connector since we're going to be re-sticking it whenever we put the new LCD on. There's some more tape down here. We'll just set that to the side. Okay. Now on the sides of the LCD, there will be 4 screws on each side that hold the actual panel in place. So we'll go ahead and take these out. Again, a magnetized screwdriver will help a lot in these instances, so you won't lose the tiny screws in carpet. Leave one screw partially in on one side so you can get most of the screws out on the other. Whenever you take the last screws on the side, then support the screen, since once you take the last screw out, it is completely loose. You don't want to fall over and damage any other part of the computer. Okay. Go ahead and take the bad LCD out. We can unwrap our new LCD. Okay. First thing you want to do is you want to compare the screens. You want to make sure that the LCD connector is in the same location on both. Same location on both. And you want to make sure that both have the CCFL connector. Some laptop screens have LED backlit screens. Some have the CCFL backlit screens. So you have to make sure you get the same one, or else obviously the screen won't light up. Installation is the reverse of taking it out. The screens come with a protective plastic cover, so you want to take those off. Whenever you're working on the new screen, you want to be extremely careful about this board up here. You don't want to put any stress on the board because this ribbon cable that connects the LCD is very fragile. Now you put the screen in, so just be careful and install one screw on one side, so then you can have it held up a little bit. Once you have the 2 screws in, then it gets a lot easier. Don't fully tighten down the screws as you're putting them in. So then in case one of the holes doesn't line up perfectly, then you can adjust the screen and get all of the screws in perfectly. Also, don't over tighten the screws. they're very fine threads, so it's pretty easy to over tighten and strip the threads out. After you get them all in, then just do a final light tightening. Again, you don't need them too tight. Okay, now we got those in. We're going to need to move the screen down. Whenever you're moving the screen, you want to be very careful of the hinges, because the hinges are hard to turn, and you don't want to bend the metal, the side metal, because they're extremely thin. I'm going to go ahead and move this back up and plug your LCD cable back in, your connector. Be very careful with the connection. If you damage it, then the LCD won't work. Once you get it in all the way, then push the tape down again. Okay. You're going to move the top panel back over. If you won't be able to put it back on if it's down like this, because the bottom plastic. The only way you can put that top panel back on is if the screen is almost flat. Under here, make sure that your CCFL